What's up, everybody? Welcome into a special weekend edition of the Mark and Brown Show. I'm Jacob. That's Casey. Below Mr. Nick Carnes. We are happy to join you on a Sunday morning. The show will be released right after we're done. We want to talk. We got some requests to make this episode. We had a desire to make this episode anyway, so special bonus episode this week will be live on Tuesday, as we always are. Talking Mike Vrabel gets hired. It was a huge. You won't find a move that's almost as universally loved. I know there were some people hating on it and saying, oh, it's to replace Stefanski and all that stupid bullshit. But I feel like 90% of the fan base was like, hell yeah. You don't get that very often with this fan base. So we want to make sure we talk about Vrabel. There were several free agency moves, including re-signing a couple of guys that have happened since we recorded Tuesday. So we're going to jump on, talk about that, talk about what's going on around the AFC North. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Happy St. Patrick's Day to those who celebrate. And to those who do not, shame on you. But yeah, man, a whirlwind of activities happened. I'm excited to talk about it with you boys. I hold back my thoughts during the pre-show just so we don't do the pod before the pod, but I'm pumped to get into it.
I hate when I do the pod before the pod, and I do it all the time.
I feel like that's one of our biggest things is just pre-show, which I mean means we're a good team for this, right? But no, it's been another. I feel like the Browns always give you like a trickling of moves. It seems like they're done doing stuff, and then all of a sudden they something else happens. The Mike Vrabel one is a big one in my opinion, and I'm really excited to get into it because it is. I don't think I've ever seen a coach that like we're all from the same Browns era here, and I'm used to getting the bargain basement, last choice type coaches, right? And not just Vrabel. Like there's a lot of other hirings that the Browns have made that have shown that they're a priority. And so for the Browns to be able to get a coach that has a winning record overall, that's universally respected, and I fully expect to have multiple job opportunities moving forward, to get him to come in and be a consultant, a la the same way Schwartz was in Tennessee for a year when he was coming back, is awesome to see. I love it, and I'm excited to talk about it.
All right, Casey, I'll give it over to you, man. I know I talked to you a little bit about this Vrabel thing, but if you want to just to update for anybody that lives under a rock, the Browns did hire Mike Vrabel to be a coaching, what do they say, like a coaching and talent consultant?
Coaching and personnel consultant.
Personnel, that's the word. But in the end, they're just, what I've heard is he's a sounding board for everybody in that organization. He's basically bringing in all of his knowledge of the NFL, and just, it turns out he was with the team at the combine, so he was helping the team scout there at the combine. That's really cool to know that they already kind of had this thing in place during some of the major aspects. They've had him there for the draft process. Obviously, he would have then probably been there for free agency that's taken place so far, and then of course the draft coming up next month. But they've got him here as a consultant. Casey, thoughts on Mike Vrabel?
Well, the first thing is surprising because how the hell did this not leak if he was there at Indy? You know what I mean? Like everything leaks in the NFL. Like from someone had to see Mike Vrabel at he's not inconspicuous. I was on a plane with the man once and I couldn't believe it. Like no one was freaking out. I'm like, that's Mike Vrabel. Maybe the mustache threw people off, but like not inconspicuous. Even if like these college kids are in these interviews and there's Mike Vrabel, like I don't know. The fact that we the news actually dropped is amazing. Couple thoughts though, like obviously you have to love it. How could you not love getting a football mind like that inside your building to bounce things off? But then I immediately go to like, so what's his role going to be? And this is what I would like his role to be. Right now you're in the personnel side of his thing. So he's breaking down film, looking at guys that would fit the scheme. Obviously, you've went through, you're combing through prospects for the draft, but you've also had to turn to free agency, and hopefully he's had a say in like the type of like of Hicks, or Bush and the roles they envision for these players. But what I really want from him is I want him to break down our offensive personnel this preseason. That's something I want him invested in so that they have an idea of how teams are going to approach him. Because Schwartz has got to be worried about his defense. He can't be also scouting the offense. But you got Vrabel who can take a step back, kind of view the whole thing, and pick things apart. He gives Stefanski pointers on what teams are going to try to take away when you give them certain looks, what kind of personnel groupings they should expect to face when they do certain things. But then when we pivot to the season, I want this dude a week ahead. I don't want him when we're week 1, he's week 2. Bird's eye it, kind of take everything apart and look at the opponent you have coming up. I think that could give you the biggest competitive advantage possible, to get a guy like Mike Vrabel. And if his defense plays well, Mike Vrabel is going to get jobs either way.
Yeah.
But if his defense can take it up another notch from what they were able to do last year, he will be the biggest name on the board, bar none. So to enjoy it while it lasts, because it's not going to be here for very long, is what I would say.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm just ecstatic because anytime you bring somebody in with that kind of pedigree, it's just a good thing. Like having too many, there's no such thing as having too many good football minds in your organization when you're trying to take that next step, because you've now gotten to the point where you've won 11 games in 2 of your last 4 seasons. You had an injury-riddled season. You were able to squeak out 7. You had a really weird season in 2021. You had 8 wins. I mean, you're kind of on the verge of really setting a precedent of being a winning team, not a 14-15 game, not a 14-3 team or anything like that. But you're on the precipice of, if you can win double-digit games again now, you're starting to see that as a trend. Well, how do you take it to the next step after that? How do you make it to the AFC Championship game? How do you get to the Super Bowl? What are those next steps? And you bring a guy in, albeit in Vrabel, that he's not won a Super Bowl as a coach, but he's won some Super Bowls as a player. He has been around a ton of success. He's won 54 games as a head coach himself. He's been coach of the year as a head coach himself, and he's been around Bill Belichick for all those wins and all that, and he was in Houston, had some success there before he goes to Tennessee, was very successful around when he was with Ohio State, things like that. It's just, I don't see a situation where you bring somebody in with a pedigree like this and you don't go, hey, this team's better. This team is better. They also hire a guy, UConn's offensive coordinator. They brought him even to be the run game coordinator and bring in an even different scheme. They're bringing all of these different schematic approaches to offense, and they're going to try to blend it into a really nice, well-rounded, evolved offense. Mm-hmm. And Vrabel is one of those guys that can kind of help be the glue that brings everything in. And, he can, as a really talented defensive mind, he can go, yeah, that offense would be a problem for me. Like if I was game planning for the offense that you guys have now formed, it can be a problem. Or he'll say, no, that's really stupid because I can tell you're going to run the ball up the middle when you do X, Y, and Z, things like that nature. And I think that consultant role, whatever it is that he does, he's just going to tell you what he thinks. And he's got a pedigree of success, so you should probably listen. I guess that's what I'm at.
Yeah. I look at the Vrabel hire in a couple different ways. Number one, when Mike Vrabel was fired, I feel like there was a lot of collective surprise about that, because it's very rare that you see a head coach with a winning record that has consistently maximized the talent that his team has get fired, right? And so when that happened, I think we all thought Vrabel was going to have a bunch of options. Now, there's only 32 head coaching jobs in the league, right? So it's like, just because I've seen some people try to knock it and say, well, clearly nobody wanted Vrabel. And like, we know that's not the case, right? So a guy like Mike Vrabel that has options, that is clearly respected across the league and has reached the point he has, like you said, Jacob, that they haven't been to the Super Bowl. But I remember when Tennessee was the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. And it really, I bet you if you looked at the number 1 overall seed in the AFC for the last 10 years, the Titans would probably stand as like that outlier that you're like, how did they do that? right? Because you're talking about a team with Ryan Tannehill. So my point is, Mike Vrabel is a guy that has options and that has consistently gotten the most out of his team. And bringing a guy in like that just speaks to where the Browns organization has gotten to. If Mike Vrabel thinks it's a good idea to come and work in Cleveland and be a part of this, I feel like that is an endorsement of what is happening in the building and just where they've built up to. Because I kind of opened the show with, I can remember a time when the Browns would not even be able to sniff the idea of Mike Vrabel being their head coach, of a guy with that type of stature in the league being the Browns head coach. And now you've got him agreeing to sign on to be an assistant. And I think that's awesome. I think it's a credit to what Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry have built this regime up to be. And really just says where the Browns as an organization are headed. And so I love that. But I think the most important part for me is going back to when the Titans were that number one seed. I've just so often seen Mike Vrabel get the most out of his guys. And obviously the idea of coaching is to do that, but some guys are just better at it than others. And I feel like if you've got Mike Vrabel in that room, and especially because it's no secret that Kevin Stefanski and Mike Vrabel's personalities are very different, but they talk about using collaboration so much. And I feel like Kevin and the staff as a whole are open to diverse perspectives. So maybe even if it's just for this season, which I think it probably will just be for this season, if you could just pull a little bit as Kevin Stefanski, because we talk a lot about how do the Browns take the next step? How do they continue to improve? Right. I think pulling from guys that, these known commodities that have these unique sets of skills, because there are far more talented teams than the Titans teams that Mike Vrabel's had that have achieved less. Right. And so Mike is that guy that I think we've all seen just continually pushes. And like when you play the Titans, when you play Mike Vrabel's Titans, it. They beat you up. They're physical. I love so much about it. So my biggest hope for this is just that they have Mike Vrabel in the building. They pull every little bit of Mike Vrabel that they can out and learn, and let's see where it goes, because I know there's been some talk about the Browns defense potentially regressing. I think Mike Vrabel's a nice balance in that conversation to where maybe the defense could take more, even because if there's somebody who knows linebackers and defensive tackles, Mike Vrabel seems to know a little bit about that.
I want to touch on one thing before we bounce off out of this, and it's something that Nick touched on for a second. Even in the pre-show, there is this narrative out there that now Stefanski needs to be looking over his shoulder. We need to talk about Kevin Stefanski, because there is a massive misconception of what he is versus what he's perceived to be with his fragile ego type thing where it's about him. You can't bring a coach in like Mike Vrabel if you have a fragile ego. He's a big personality. He's going to command a lot of respect around the organization, not, nationally. But it goes further than that, because you talked about bringing all these different voices in. This is a huge moment, because we're talking about the defending coach of the year, two-time coach of the year. For him to step outside and be like, what do we need to do to get better? That meant getting rid of a lot of people, bringing a lot of new people in, taking all this information in, and people will always rely back. Because when he first got here, they're like, oh, it's Stefanski's system. He kept saying, no, it's not my system. It's everyone's system. We're bringing these people in. But a lot of the people that he brought on that first go around were like-minded. So it kind of gave you a certain style of offense. Well, now that's not the case, man. He's brought people in from everywhere. We got all kinds of different modalities and thought processes going in to make this unique system. And then you bring a guy like Vrabel in from the outside, who's viewed as and maybe it's just me, I think Vrabel is an elite NFL coach. I hold him in that regard. When he got fired, I was mystified. Like that's a huge miss by Tennessee. So the lack of ego to bring all these things in to make the collective better. That is something you don't see with someone who's a fragile person, so that narrative needs to die. It's just, it's old and it's tired, man. Stefanski's not some power hungry guy. He is willing to do whatever it takes to make this thing better. He's the defending coach of the year, and he still switched everything up. He could have been like, no, what I'm doing is good enough. we can just stay on this path. Nope. He's shaking the whole thing up, and we're going to see what we get out of it. But like, I think that the ability to step outside of oneself and say, look, man, we got to do all these things to get better. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. If that's getting defending another NFL coach of the year, bringing in all these college coordinators. I'm excited to see what Charlton can bring to it. You go get a Ken Dorsey, you go get Dickerson, who spent time with the Rams. This thing's going to look wildly different. And I don't think it could look the same based on everything that you've brought into it. I think he needs to get credit for that.
Yeah, man, like do whatever it takes. That was in the low, the intro to this show, and Stefanski said it, whatever it fucking takes. And if this is what it takes, then this is what it takes. All right, we're going to move on to the rest of free agency that has happened for week one leading up to this Sunday. I'm going to go off the top. I'm just going to read them, and then we can start wherever we want. The Browns re-sign Corey Bojorquez, the punter. I don't think there's much to say about that other than thank you. He was a weapon last year. Special teams made an impact, and you should run it back with those guys. And I think that is what needs to be said. So glad that happened. Harrison Bryant and Nick Harris walk. They allowed them to go seek other jobs, and I'm thankful for what they've done. Nick Harris and Harrison Bryant were willing to do whatever the hell they were asked to do. And that is a good thing. So if you are a fan of the teams they are going to, that is what you're getting. Seattle, it's kind of funny that Seattle's where Harris went, because Harris was the heir apparent at center, and then the new center, Ethan Posick, is from Seattle. Yep. And now he goes to Seattle, and Harrison Bryant. Where'd Harrison Bryant go?
The Raiders.
The Raiders, yeah. And so, and he's willing to do whatever the hell you ask him to do. So I wish those guys the best of luck, but I wasn't paying Harrison Bryant $3.5 million. Like, I just wasn't doing it. They replaced Mike Ford with special team cornerback Tony Brown. Just so we're clear, he was suspended part of last year for conduct detrimental to the team. So glad we got another one of those. Doesn't really do much outside of special teams, but he's a special teams ace. We've seen that impact the Browns last year with core special teamers that were brought in to be core special teamers. So when one of them leaves, bringing in someone else that can do that same thing. I think some people like Tony Brown a little bit more than Mike Ford. For me, it's kind of like an even thing. They lost one who made more money than what this guy's going to make. So
yeah, I think Ford probably even gave you more as a coverage corner than Brown will give you. But Brown's familiarity with Ventrone's what this is about.
Yeah, it works out.
All I know is the special teams improved significantly last year. So if Bubba Ventrone wants a couple guys on the roster, more power to him.
Well, they did it early, too. We talked about this on the live show Tuesday night. They did it. Some of the early moves they made in 2023 were getting Mike Ford and Matthew Adams. Like, those moves came in the first couple of days of free agency. And a lot of people are like, who? And you're like, special teams. He's a really good special teamer. You're not going to know his name unless he's on your team. But that's what he is. And they went out and they struck, and, you're like, okay, cool. So we're even split. And then the last two moves, they bring in veteran defensive tackle Quentin Jefferson. I love this move. And then they bring in Devin Bush, the linebacker, former 10th overall pick. So, Casey, I'll go with you. Where do you want to start?
This defensive line, man. This defensive line. I was going into this, obviously you don't know if they're going to be able to retain Z. You knew there was a chance, but you also knew it could take a long time to play out. It doesn't. They get him. Shelby's back in the fold. Hurst. You had Jefferson, and now Hurst and Jefferson's ability to rotate and just give you crazy amount of pressure on passing downs. These guys, or they win. Yeah. They win their reps. There's going to be pressure coming up the middle, and there's nothing. I don't even know now, because of the defensive tackle room stacked the way that it is. I don't even know if there's room for a draft pick. And if it does, it kicks Ica out. You know what I mean? Like that's where it would come at. That's crazy to me, because 2 weeks ago I didn't think that. I thought that for sure they're going to have to at least snag one. Not now, man. Which maybe tells you what they think of the tackle class as a whole and the ranges they would have to pick.
Yeah, it's very.
Mm-hmm. But the last thing is for that defensive line is now if McGuire takes a step, good Lord, dude, because you got nothing but playable pieces. You have just waves and waves of people that you can sub in when Miles needs a breather, and when Za'Darius can still kick inside. Alex Wright can still kick inside.
They're going to put Alex Wright inside, I think, a lot.
That's what I'm saying, man. This is just, you've given Jim Schwartz an arsenal to work with up front. Yeah. And we know that's the engine that drives this team on defense. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I just super impressed by what they did. The linebacker thing, I still think they could add one through the draft. Because of the moves they've made, they can now take a bigger swing at linebacker than they would have been able to had they not made all these moves to shore up certain areas. But, man, they got faster at linebacker, which is something we said they needed to do. And people were kind of torn on the Devin Bush thing. This is AB's wheelhouse, baby. I want to go get a guy who's underperformed, who was highly thought of coming into the process, has underperformed over time, but has all these elite athletic metrics that tell you that he could work in certain areas. And if you can weaponize that, you don't have to be a high snap guy, but you can be a high impact guy. And I think that's what their vision is for Devin Bush. So all in all, man. And then, we didn't talk about it, but you signed McLeod and we're short up. There's not one area of this defense that you look at and says, you need to do this. You need to add this. You don't need anything. Everything from this point on is gravy.
So when the Browns signed Quentin Jefferson, I look up his stats just to get an idea. And my favorite stat about Jefferson is his 6 sacks with the Jets last year would have been second on the team for the Browns, which is pretty impressive to me. And the idea that you can get that type of potential pass rush off of a 1-year cheapy deal is super exciting to me, because I understand now Jordan Elliott, credit to him, he just got a second contract with the 49ers and they paid him a decent bit. So that's great for him. And I'm happy for him. But I think overall the Browns drafting a defensive tackle still has left something to be desired. Mm-hmm. But on the other end of that spectrum, you're starting to look at it and you're saying, okay, Andrew Berry's pretty good at these 1-year cheapy deals with defensive tackles and getting something out of them. You're starting to build a pretty significant list now. You look at Malik Jackson, Malik McDowell, Mo Hurst last year, Shelby Harris, and now you're looking at Quentin Jefferson, who I feel pretty good about and is going to be able to contribite here. The name of the former Jaguar who was here for a year is
Taven Bryan.
Thank you, Taven Bryan. Even he was okay for the Browns. I feel like that's been a place where Andrew Berry's been able to find pretty significant value. Aside from paying Dalvin Tomlinson premium money, you're getting
who has been worth it, by the way.
Who has been worth it? You're getting at this point, you're getting nice production out of guys who are really not making a whole lot of anything, considering the robust defensive tackle market we've seen out there, right? And so I love that. I love that they found another guy who's going to work in this rotation. Because Casey, like you said, I don't know how Siaki Ika is finding the field. I don't know. And that's crazy because you're just using 1-year cheapy deals to accomplish this, right? And I feel like the more we dig into all these free agent moves, for so long everyone was like, well, how are the Browns going to compete if they don't have these premium picks that they gave up to add the quarterback? And the answer is you're finding values like this. So I'm really excited about Quentin Jefferson. I think that makes a ton of sense. And I feel like all of a sudden, like you already have this defensive end rotation that is just awesome. Like I am super excited about having Za'Darius back, and then you're using him in tandem with Obo, and then you loved what you saw out of Alex Wright, and obviously Myles Garrett. So that's 4 guys right there. And so now you're building that at defensive tackle as well. That's something to be excited about. And as far as Devin Bush goes, yet another. Hey, here, tell me if you've heard this before. Former first-round draft pick with elite athletic traits signs with the Browns. Here we are, Andrew Berry's wheelhouse. I just think there's a ton of upside there. And you sign him as a free agent, again, pretty cheaply. So if he works out, that's awesome. And if he doesn't, that's okay. You're still you haven't lost anything. So I love the upside moves. I feel like Jerry Jeudy is like that, and Devin Bush is obviously like that. And you're not going to hit on all of them, but you're at least giving yourself a chance to do so. So as far as where the Browns are at, yeah, you go into the draft now and you say, okay, who's going to fall to us? Who's going to fall? Because that's where the Browns are in that position of luxury to ask that question. So I love it.
It almost feels like they could just go all offense in the draft. Like I was thinking about that last night based on the way they've kind of got it set up. Yeah, they need some future, like they need some more. I think they need to get a linebacker at some point, maybe earlier, maybe not, just because of the way the room's constructed. They need to get a wide receiver. But like
sure.
A lot of the like things they need to get are for the future and on offense. They need depth and future starters on the offensive line, things of that nature. But it's really funny when you look at it. So I always look at, do the Browns get better? Like, do they get better in free agency? Did they get better this week? They did, especially when you start looking at things one for one. You talk about Quentin Jefferson. He replaces Jordan Elliott. That is what he's coming in here to do. Jordan Elliott's role. Jordan Elliott was an earlier down guy, but more of a pass rusher than a run defender. You talk about Quentin Jefferson got 6 sacks last year with the Jets. Interesting stat about Jordan Elliott. He has played in every game in his 4-year career. He hasn't started every game, but he played 16 games in 2020, 16 games in 2021. And then the last 2 years, he's played 17 games because of the 17th game season. Quentin Jefferson had more sacks last year than Jordan Elliott has in his entire career. Okay. Jordan Elliott has 5 career sacks. He had none as a rookie. He had half of a sack in 2021, and then he had 2 and 2.5 the last 2 years. And I thought Jordan Elliott was pretty good this year. For what his role was, what they were asked him to do, he was able to do that. He was able to step in. He did some things better. I think he's a better run defender than Quentin Jefferson. I will say that. I think not that Jordan Elliott's like an elite run defender, but I do think he's better. But if you're looking at it as like a early down and pass rusher type to help with, him and Mo Hurst being those like more pass rush specialists, because I think Shelby Harris and Dalvin Tomlinson are good at both. Yeah. So now you've got the other, and it's in a passing league, and you're talking about the quarterbacks that you have in your division. And then you're starting to be like, we've got to put pressure on those guys from the interior. That's I think I was listening to, it might've been the Draft Dudes on the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast. And they said, the quickest way to the quarterback is up the middle. Because it's straight. You just go straight to the quarterback. You're not bending around the edge, doing any kind of stuff. You just go straight at the quarterback. So getting pass rushers on the interior, Quentin Jefferson had PFF gave him a 73.2 pass rush grade last year, 29 quarterback pressures, 5 hits, 16 hurries, and 22 stop tackles as a run defender. They also gave him a 38.7 run defense grade. So like I said, not a great run defender, but an upgrade as a situational pass rusher. And that gives you 2 in him and Mo Hurst that are really good pass rushers from the middle. And they're going to put Alex Wright in there. They're going to put Zadarius Smith in there. And then, put some guys on the outside, Ogbo, they said they now have an even better, deeper rotation in my mind.
Yep.
I feel even better about this rotation. Mm-hmm. They bring back all of the edge guys. Just think about that. They're all back. When you get Zadarius back, everyone is back that were major contributors. The major contributors from the defensive tackle, they're back. Hurst and Harris, who signed a 2-year deal. Keep that in mind. Shelby Harris signed a multiple-year deal. And then you upgrade Jordan Elliott into Quentin Jefferson. It's like, okay, all right. Yeah. With Devin Bush, to me, I don't like Devin Bush. I don't think he's very good. He had a really good rookie year, and then he's been kind of the rest of the way. But my God, is he an athlete at the position? So if you're talking about, hey, there's a physical traits guy that has not lived up to what he was supposed to be, that's Devin Bush. And you're saying, well, I think some of the processing things in front of him and figuring out what's going on is leaves something to be desired. But like with this dude go look at his Michigan tape. There's a reason he was 10th overall. If Jason Tarver, who I think is one of the better linebackers coach in the NFL, and Jim Schwartz can get Devin Bush to play like he did in college and like he did as a rookie with the Steelers, there's a lot of talent there. We just haven't seen it consistently on the field. But my God, would they pay him like $3 million?
Whoopee.
And it wasn't even $3 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
Like, okay, shit. Go draft Junior Colson. Please draft Junior Colson. Like, Okay. Win this week, man. Like, I just feel like it's not an A+. They didn't go out and just blow you away, but they are a 11-win team that I think is better now than last Sunday. So, Casey, I know as we switch over, we're kind of start to wrap this thing over. We're going to switch over. I know you guys both want to talk about Justin Fields and some of the things that have happened in the AFC North. So I'll let you guys kick that off.
Well, you just said it. You know, you're an 11-win team who got better. Look around your division. They're all getting better. Like, no, I don't look at any team who's getting demonstratively worse than they were last year, and you're in the most competitive division in the NFL.
They all had winning records last year.
Yeah, only time that's ever happened since the
It's the best division of football.
That's what I'm saying. And they all got better. So, yes, did you get better? Yes, but so did your competition. So you got to keep striving, you know. My biggest thing with Pittsburgh, and it's just because of the beating we took during Roethlisberger's reign.
I don't want to go back to it, man.
I super needed them to be in quarterback purgatory for a while. Yeah. I just needed that to happen just for my own psyche. It's like, okay, we need you to deal with this. These sons of bitches have clawed and managed to like come off their mistakes. They made some mistakes early in this process of trying to find the next guy. And then look, man, Russell Wilson could be a mistake. It's a low cost mistake though. If it is, you know what I mean? Like, and then they've already got his successor kind of like in place. It's they traded some nickels and got Justin Fields for nothing. Yep. Which any team could have done, but no, the Steelers did it. And I said, I don't know how many months ago it was, I said to you and Randy, Justin Fields is going to be a Steeler. And you guys were like, don't put that out there.
Yeah, I did.
Son of a bitch.
I did tell you not to put that. I blame you, man.
I put that out in the universe because I just saw it. And that's before they had Arthur Smith, which is who I wanted Fields to get with in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Like this whole thing comes full circle. And like, they're trying, man. They're trying. They're trying their damnedest to not be in quarterback purgatory, you know.
I'm going to take allergy medicine while we do this.
They lost Deontay Johnson, which I think is an actual loss. You know, they don't have a ton of that wide receiver room. They had Pickens and a couple hopes and dreams, but they're doing what they can to get out of quarterback purgatory, and I hate that for us.
Did the Deontay Johnson trade strike you as weird, Casey? Because I felt like Deontay is. Listen, I get he's not a perfect wide receiver, but all of the charts and metrics that you see about like, are you getting open? Deontay Johnson is up there among them. And I just feel like the tandem of Pickens, who's the contested catch guy, and Deontay, who is the route technician, made so much sense for them. And for them to move off of Deontay for what they got did not feel like a great value for them.
I have an answer.
Okay.
You can only have one wide receiver head case on a team at a time.
Okay.
So to me, it was a locker room move because if you look at between him, Deontay Johnson and Pickens, I think Pickens has the higher ceiling. He's younger. He's a head case as well, but you can't have two of those dudes. You can afford one. So I think Phil was a locker room move, and they were god awful cornerback last year. So the move was to get a cornerback to help that and just to get another head case off the team because they were taking turns having meltdowns week to week. It'd be Johnson one week, it'd be Pickens the next. So I think that was just an addition by subtraction type thing.
Okay.
Man, I want to tell you right now, right here, this stuff. Take it. You got stuffed up nose. You hit that stuff up. Wow, man.
Good for you.
It smells like Vicks Vapor Rub too. And kick that right up in there.
You sound a little more like Jacob now.
I sound a little bit better. Yeah. No, man. Allergies will get me this time of year, man, and they'll just kick me right in the twig and berries. But Justin Fields. I just wanted to say, of course. Like, I thought we were out of the woods. I thought we were out of the woods with Russell Wilson. And I was like, they're going to keep on Kenny Pickett because he's on because he was on a rookie deal. They had control over him. He's cheap because he's not Kenny Pickett's got 2 more years before he would be playing on the 5th-year option. So you've got 2 more years of very, very cost-effective quarterback play in terms of his contract. So I was like, of course, they're just going to keep Kenny Pickett. It's going to be and I couldn't figure out where Justin Fields was going to go, right? I was like, oh my God, I can't figure what's going to happen. And then I'm just chilling last night, hanging out after work. I'm very upset, by the way, because I told you boys that I've got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm very excited to play that. Apparently, when I bought it on Thursday, between Thursday and Saturday, the power went out and it stopped downloading. So I went to fire it up last night to download, and it was only at 70%. But like that happened, and then the Steelers got Justin Fields. And I was like, what the fuck is going on, man? Like, what is going on here? I just want to say, like, Fields has got that ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Mike Tomlin does not have a good history with young quarterbacks and with offensive coordinators. Mm-hmm. I know that. But wouldn't that be the most fucking Steelers thing of all time for him to figure it out? Like, Russ is going to go out there and start. Everybody said that. You've gotten all kinds of sources, millions of them saying, yes, we've talked to everybody. And there's a source coming out today that Mike Tomlin has talked to Russell Wilson and assured him, you are the starting quarterback.
Mm-hmm. I just want to point out one thing.
If he sits there and grows.
I just want to point out one thing is because here's the disappointment for me. Rewind a month ago. These sandbagging sons of bitches said it was going to be between Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett.
They said they weren't going to. They had no interest in Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, and then the fuckers got both of them.
And then fast forward a month later, and it's Russell Wilson and Justin Fields and Mason Rudolph. I don't forget where he even fucking went. But
Tennessee.
Tennessee. He's going to be the starter in Tennessee. I guarantee it.
Over Billy Jeans? You gonna?
Oh wait, Will Levis. I forgot. I was thinking
baby.
I just like to weigh in on Justin Fields. I remember when he was falling in the draft, and in my head I was just thinking, not Pittsburgh. and then Chicago has to trade up and give up an extra first round pick to get him. And I thought that was an interesting landing spot for him. But it's like of course Pittsburgh, not only do they not have to give up multiple first round picks, that they've got to give up a sixth that could be a fourth. That is it's not even pennies on the dollar. It's like whatever's less than pennies. It's like half a penny on the dollar for a guy that offers that type of upside. I don't remember how many yards Justin Fields rushed for a couple years ago, but to get the ability at quarterback to do that for what the Steelers gave up is just asinine. And you look around the rest of the NFL and you're saying I don't know what Denver's going to be some clown show over there in Mile High this year.
They're going to take a quarterback at 12. Whoever's there, Sean Payton's going to think he can make that because listen, I'm very well known Sean Payton hater, but Sean, there ain't nobody that thinks they're the God's gift to football quite like Sean Payton thinks he is. And it's going to end up being Bo Nix or Michael Penix because I think the other four the top three and J.J. McCarthy will already be off the board. Yeah. And that dude's going to go out there. He's going to take Bo Nix and he's just going to ride it, man. I swear to God.
I just think if you're a team that's saying to themselves, okay, we're gonna try to draft our quarterback of the future, I understand that. But when you look at the price that Justin Fields has compared to the upside that he provides, it's like if the worst case scenario is you throw Justin Fields out there and they do a whole bunch of losing like he did with Chicago, that's fine. You can still draft your quarterback of the future, but at least you give yourself, like if you're Washington, if you're Denver, if you're Las Vegas, like no disrespect to Gardner Minshew, man, but I just think you at least give yourself upside with Justin Fields. And so it's like, of course, none of these other teams do it. And of course and you know what? I gave credit to the Steelers last night on Twitter. I got to give them credit. They recognize that they are in the best division in football and that they were teetering on the brink of like the levee really breaking of this like winning season streak and all of that stuff. They were gifted a playoff spot by the Baltimore Ravens sitting their starters the final week of the season. And so I have to give them credit. They recognize that they were not in a place to compete in this division. And so now they're certainly going to try. And I'm hoping it doesn't work out, but those moves on even if it doesn't work out, they've given up nothing to
take big swings.
Yeah. So it's just very Steelers, and you've got to give them credit. You look around the AFC North and you say like the Ravens got Derrick Henry, the Bengals are shoring up their defense. Now the only chink in the armor to me is this T. Higgins situation, who I don't know if you've been paying attention to his Instagram, but clearly does not seem like he wants to be in Cincinnati. So that is like, as I'm looking at the division and looking at where we're going, that's like the only knock I have in the whole thing, which is it feels so Browns that they've risen to this level to where I feel like they could reasonably compete to win basically any division in football. And it's like, here we are in the AFC North where AFC North football is must watch. That's, I think that sums it up.
Yeah. The thing that I think hamstrung Fields in this whole thing was the lack of control a team would have. So they were hesitant to give up something good to get him because you might only have him for a year. And then say a situation like this where you've guaranteed Russell Wilson the starting job for whatever you did that. If you exercise the 5th-year option on Fields, all of a sudden you're paying your backup quarterback 16 or whatever it's going to be. I think that was like
pretty sure it's like 25.
Is that what it's going to be now for him?
Pretty sure. Okay. That's what I saw last night.
Okay. Yeah, you can't do that. You can't pay your backup quarterback $25 million. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that. How they exercise it, because they have until May 2nd to exercise the 5th-year option. Is that the deadline for that?
I think it's May 2nd. Yeah,
sounds right.
So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But they definitely improved their quarterback room much to our dismay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the T. Higgins thing for a second, because it dawned on me while you were talking. It's going to be hard to move him because the only teams that are going to want to make moves for him are other competing teams. And if it's in the AFC, the Bengals can't make another team better. You can't. If the Chiefs come, you're like, hey, we'll do it. Like, nah, we can't. We can't do it to you. They're not going to do it inside the division, obviously.
Yeah.
But even like if the Bills make a move, you can't make that move. And there are so many teams in the AFC that are jockeying for position. You're very limited on the teams. And a team who's not in competing mode is going to be very hesitant to go for a T. Higgins based on the price tag because you exercised that, because you did the tag on him. So interesting. I don't like the fact they got Mike Gesicki. Since Joe Burrow's been in Cincinnati, they have not had a receiving tight end. They've had a couple decent dual threats like Hayden Hurst, but Gesicki's a receiver, man. Like that could work. That could definitely work in Cincinnati.
Right.
I don't like that move. I'm still mad they got Zach Moss. I'm going to be pissed about that for a while. That's going to take me a minute to get over. We talked about the Derrick Henry thing to Baltimore last Tuesday, but yeah, man, this division's cutthroat, brother. It's showing zero signs of slowing down.
Mm-hmm. The only good thing I have is that by trading Kenny Pickett, the Steelers officially did draft a first-round bust of a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought it'd happen. I never thought it'd see the day. It's like,
here we are. Yep.
But in logically, you would say, okay, well, that'll set them back for a while, right? And then of course they just go out and get 2 quarterbacks on for nothing. So
yeah,
whoopee.
Wooden nickels.
I'd like to make one prediction. If T. Higgins does get traded, I'm saying he's an Arizona Cardinal. I think that makes a ton of sense. Their wide receiver room is questionable at best. Aside from Trey McBride and tight end, they just got rid of Marquise Brown signed with the Chiefs, and they traded away. Who did they trade away? To the Falcons. They just traded one of their Rondale Moore, which I mean isn't a huge name, but in their wide receiver room that it's significant. They have very noticeable holes there, and I'm assuming they're going to draft somebody high.
Marvin Harrison and T. Higgins on the same team, that would strike fear in the hearts of opponents.
Yeah, they've got multiple first-round picks. I could see that something like that making sense because you've already got Kyler Murray in place.
Could you see it if those fuckers gave up the 4th pick and the Bengals got fucking like Brock Bowers or like Joe Alt, some bullshit like that?
This is some evil.
I'd be pissed.
I don't want to live in that world. I don't want to live in that world.
But I just think as you look around, I'm glad the Browns. So when you look at the rest of the AFC North, I'm so glad that the Browns have been so aggressive. Like not only with their player acquisitions, but when you're talking about turning over your whole basically your whole offensive staff outside of the wide receivers coach, after an 11-win season, after a playoff berth, after your coach was coach of the year, they could have just rested on their laurels. And it feels like they have done about as much as they could reasonably do to improve and change the offense and come at it with a different angle this year. Because I don't think any of us here would say that the Browns offense was good enough as a whole last year. Yeah. And so if you're talking about playing in the best division of football, you had better work on improving. And so I don't know how any of this is going to play out, but I do feel like the Browns gave it their absolute best thus far to get to a place where they can compete for the division.
Yeah. No notes.
There's some people on Twitter telling you all about how Andrew Berry's been asleep at the wheel because
that's hilarious.
Because he's been shopping at I just read this tweet that said he's been shopping at the dollar store.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck. I got a lot of great stuff in my house from the dollar store.
I was gonna say, I feel like it's more like an Ollie situation, and he's just coming up with deal after deal, man.
It's just like they're better.
I just don't like. How can you, you're a Browns fan, and you just watched Andrew Berry last year add a bunch of these guys cheaply: Shelby Harris, Mo Hurst. I'm trying to think about guys that they added cheaply. I mean, you added Sorry.
McLeod.
Yeah, Ronnie McLeod. You've got great play from Joe Flacco, who you added off the couch. They're just the moves aren't all coming to my brain right now. But my point is, you've seen a lot of these subtle moves. You traded a 7th round pick for Dustin Hopkins, right? And you're seeing a lot of these moves that are not high profile, but worked out for the Browns substantially, right? So why I just don't understand the negativity or the doubt when we already have tangible evidence saying, hey, these moves don't all have to be flashy to pay dividends.
Yeah. It's crazy because, like, were you guys here in 2017 when there was nothing in the cupboard? Nothing. And now look at all these high value, because you're not making high splash moves because you already have so many high value contracts on the books. And I said it in private. This team could go out and sign the Avengers and people would be pissed they didn't try to trade for the Justice League.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's maddening.
It's like with the Jerome Baker yesterday. He signs for 1 year, 7, and everybody's like, AB couldn't have done that. He can't. It's like, you don't even know if he was interested in coming to Cleveland. Like, it's not everybody who signs doesn't mean the Browns could have done that exact deal with them. Like, doesn't mean they fit into all this shit. It's like Andrew Berry's good at his job. Kevin Stefanski's good at their job. Let them do their job. The only move I don't like this year so far is Devin Bush, because I'm not high on Devin Bush, but it's such a low risk, high reward move that I don't care. Like, I was like, I would have rather gone somewhere else, but I can't hate the move because you're paying them fucking pennies.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, okay, cool. And then he goes out there, say he goes out there and earns a contract. Like, the Browns probably aren't going to give it to him because they got to pay JOK. But if he goes out there and has a hell of a year, you're just like, oh, for $3 million, he was a top 50, top 30 linebacker at the position, or top 50, or, because there's a ton of linebackers. But
if he's playable, makes any impact whatsoever.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then it's worth it. I was the same way with Judy. Judy wasn't my target of choice, but giving up what you gave to get him, great. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. How could you be mad at
And maybe he becomes the future at wide receiver.
Very possible. That is among the range of outcomes.
Because and they're looking for one because they don't have any major proven contributors on
Tillman and Bell, who's got under contract past this year.
Tillman and Bell. Is that what you said? Yeah.
And I don't know if you looked at Twitter yesterday, but Jared Judy's sleeping in his new Browns jersey.
I did see that. I woke up to that.
That one was like, I didn't see that. I was like, whoa. Okay.
Hey, if that's your highest profile ad of the offseason and dude is bought in enough that he's sleeping in his jersey, I like it. I feel like that's a good. I don't know how it's going to play out on the field, but I feel like he's giving you all the right. Like, I'm excited to be here. I'm ready to work.
He said something that I think was very important. He talked about how he had even heard the Browns were interested in him going back 2 years. Like they've gone back 2 years. They've been talking about it. And like he made this point multiple times in his presser and the video that the Browns released, just talking about feeling wanted. And I just think that's kind of what the Browns do is they like, and sometimes I think it can be a detriment where they lock onto players and no matter what, once they get an opportunity to get them, they'll go get them. Mm-hmm. And I think that, they did that with Elijah Moore. They had been interested in him in the draft and they found a way to go get him. They did it with Jerry Jeudy, even if Jerry Jeudy hasn't been fantastic. He still had almost 1,000 yards in Nathaniel Hackett's system a couple of years ago, which is just insane when you actually think about it, because that was just an absolute shit show. Yeah. Just an absolute shit show. But like if they lock onto a guy, like, and they want a guy, people know it. I mean, they talk to these guys at the combine, and even if they don't even get them, they put it in their ear, like, hey, should they come up in a trade or come up in free agency? Hey, the Browns have been interested in you since you were drafted, things like that. I just think it's kind of the way the culture is overall shifted and the way things are getting established consistently. I don't know. I think it's a good time. I said this last offseason, and I'll say it probably every offseason. It's all on the quarterback. Everything else is there.
Yep.
I think everything else is there. No, it's not a perfect roster, but it's a top 10 roster. I'll take that to it's a top 10 roster as it stands right now, with the draft still to come in 5-6 weeks, whatever it is. But it's top 10 roster. That's where let's put a bow on this motherfucker.
We have a ton of content coming for you. We're doing a giveaway right now, giving away a Browns flag. For the low price of just clicking that subscribe button, courtesy of the great idea of that guy up there. So we're working on building this thing, and so everybody that's already listened to the show on the new YouTube, anybody that's taken the time to subscribe and like, we appreciate the hell out of you.
Apple Podcasts too.
Yes, we're audio versions. We got it everywhere, right? And
in your ears.
You're helping three guys chase their dreams by supporting us. So thank you all. We will be doing some very spicy draft content when we get there. So look for that coming forward. So this has been, I'm not really sure what episode of the Barking Brown Show. I think we stopped counting a while ago.
A long time ago.
But I'm Nick. He's Casey. He's Jacob. Go Browns.
You don't have anything today.